Welcome to our third Recruitment Hacks Live show, which this week the topic is Mind Over Matter, setting yourself up to succeed in recruitment. And we are joined by Chris O'Connell and Simi Rayat, who are both have far more expertise in this area than I do. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank everyone for the lovely comments that we've been getting every week. And really this show this week is for recruitment leaders and recruiters who are feeling a bit off. Perhaps you're lacking in a bit of confidence and motivation. You're struggling, you're feeling a little bit burnt out. You feel you need to get your mojo back, which I quite understand during these times. I had a bit of a tough day myself yesterday. Or perhaps you want some top tips to ensure that you're maintaining a healthy mindset. So what we're doing today is this show's really going to be in two parts. We want you not to just survive, but to thrive in these market conditions. So the first thing we're going to look at is mental health. And then we'll discuss why having a positive mindset is such a vital ingredient for being successful in recruitment, which is something I totally agree with myself. But obviously, Chris and Simi will tell us a little bit more. So, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us everything? I know there's a big story, but I think it's important for people to realise that, you know, you have a very strong background in recruitment. You've been a prolific recruiter. Just tell us everything about yourself, please.
Thank you so much, Rayat and Simi. I'm really excited to be here and hope I can provide some tips and tricks to everyone listening. So I'm now a performance and leadership wellbeing coach, but prior to that, I've got 24 years recruitment experience. Started out at the S3 group. I'm sure most people know who they are. Was their top biller worldwide. Loved it. Learned a hell of a lot. Then built a business to multi-million pound levels, 25 million pound turnover, 100 staff, loads of awards, sold that through private equity. But what I do now, I love the most, and that's going into businesses and driving them forward, doing all the organizational development, all the archetypal stuff around growth, but also heavy emphasis on well-being, mental health, and driving performance as well.
And Simi, could we just have a quick bio on you?
Amazing. Great to hear that, Chris. My name's Simi Rayat. I work as an executive coach, leadership coach. My background is as a business psychologist. I work with leaders globally to really elevate leadership brilliance. And I do that in terms of really helping them deepen their self-awareness and also their impact on those around them. I set up my own psychology counselling practice when I was living in Australia, grew the practice over a short period, actually, of 4.5 years to quite substantial growth, and then had an opportunity to sell the business. So I sold the business a lot sooner than I had initially expected or planned for, but it was a great opportunity. And then myself and my family moved back to the UK. I'm here in London. I've now set up 2 years ago another psychology coaching practice called Wellbeing. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation with Chris and Rowella here today.
Thank you. And what I should just highlight to everybody is that both Simi and Chris have offered to do a 30-minute one-to-one session, either with a recruitment leader or with a consultant or a recruiter or manager in recruitment. And if you would like to take advantage of having a free one-to-one with them, please either comment in the comments section of the box that's scrolling through, or alternatively, if you want to keep it private, that you'd like to have a one-to-one, then DM me privately, and at the end of the show we will choose 2 people to have those one-to-ones with. So if you'd like to have a one-to-one around mindset, mental health, anything at all that these, you know, they've just obviously explained what they can do, then please do either put something in the comments box or alternatively DM me privately. That would be great. So I wanted to start obviously with this mental health piece. It's obviously a very important subject. And for those of you who are in the audience today who are listening, there is an initiative set up by Rhonda D'Ambrosia called Mental Health in Recruitment. And they recently did a survey so that we could, as an industry, get a more accurate view of mental health within our sector. And I've asked Katie to actually put the links in the comments section of the feed so that people can perhaps refer to it later and have a look at the have a look at the results of the survey, which won't surprise anyone. I think generally speaking, the overall view was that recruitment leaders thought that perhaps they had a better grasp on what was happening with their teams than they perhaps do, and they feel perhaps that they're doing more than their teams actually perceive that they are. And personally, that didn't surprise me at all. So what I wanted people to know really is that, you know, recruitment has a reputation for resilience, strength and adaptability. And this is a quote directly from Rhonda, but it doesn't mean that our people are superhuman. And for those of us, or for those of you that are struggling at the moment, they need to know that they're not alone. And we need to remove this stigma around mental health and encourage people to be far more honest about how they're feeling. And as we all know, this often starts at the top. I think there is a perception, and I'm sure, Chris, you would agree from your previous experience, that as recruitment leaders, we can't show weakness. We put a mask over our face. We show up every day being as positive as we can be, but perhaps we have a culture in the business that makes people feel that there's a bit of a survival of the fittest mentality. We can't show weakness or vulnerability, and it's a bit of a sink or swim environment. And I think if COVID has taught us anything at all, teams are feeling under more pressure. There's nowhere to hide. We're working from home. We're feeling more vulnerable. We're not with our teams or being motivated or feeling that there's someone there that we can talk to. It's a little bit more difficult, I think, than perhaps it would be if you're in an office environment. So, Chris, I just wanted to ask you first, what are the telltale signs that we should be looking for individuals in our teams who might be suffering from some sort of mental health or issues around anxiety?
Well, I think it's a really good question. I think it's not always as obvious as what it might seem. You can be an introvert, an extrovert. You can be very kind of upbeat, gregarious, positive, but that doesn't mean that you're not suffering in some way for mental health.
Yeah.
So, you know, always check on your quiet mates or your quiet people and your loud and gregarious ones as well, I'd say. But I mean, signs could be things like poor diet, poor sleep, you know, weight loss, weight gain. But also maybe you can pick up on some nuances around maybe eye contact, body language, you know, how people actually react or respond. You know, I think it's, you know, there's always a good sign. And things that are thrown at people, and sometimes you can respond really well, but sometimes people react quite badly. So I think it's generally people's responses and how they communicate. But never assume anything I say about anyone. Just because someone's laughing and joking, that doesn't mean anything.
I think we all get into the habit of, when we're asking someone how they are, we just say, I'm fine. I've had that so many times, not just in teams, but with children. Again, you know, a group of individuals that we should be keeping a bit of an eye on at the moment. Simi, anything to add to, you know, looking at the signs of where somebody might be suffering?
Yeah, I think some great signs there that Chris has pointed out. I think in addition to that, you know, it's really about listening to the language that people are using when they're talking. And it can be quite subtle, you know, in terms of some of the words that they use. Or it might even just be the glaring obvious, you know, where you really pick up that they're not coping, or they're struggling, or they're finding some things hard. So I think being really open and receptive to hearing the subtleties in language is really important. I think the other thing also is just some key kind of behavioural things in terms of, say, kind of missing certain meetings, or perhaps, you know, kind of getting a few delays on kind of deadlines. And these are not just one-off occurrences, but if they seem out of character for that individual, I think it's really important to recognise those signs, especially as we're working remotely. And, you know, quite often it can be easy to turn off the camera and, you know, feel that you are on your own and doing everything on your own, and, you know, no one else is going to see those signs. But I think as leaders, if we can be a bit more visual to even the stuff that we're not seeing, but the stuff we're hearing, I think that's really important.
And I know, Chris, you know, you're coming from a position where you have gone through this journey yourself, you know, for various reasons. What are the strategies that you've put in place to ensure that if you're feeling a bit off or you've lost your mojo, what do you do to help you get through that?
Well, I think it takes time and experience. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. It's like a muscle. I think you have to exercise that mental health wellbeing muscle on a consistent daily basis. But I've got a myriad of tips. I'll try and give a few off that I've used. And it's, what I say isn't necessarily right for everybody. It's right for me. But people can choose their own way as well. But it does start with self-care. And ordinarily you'd think that's quite a selfish thing to do. But it's a selfless thing, particularly in leadership positions. You look after yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that can help others. It's really important. So I've been guilty of that in the past, just been focusing on work too much, or serving others, or doing things for other people. But fundamentally, what I do up in the morning, I wake up, obviously, I put my feet on the ground. And what I mean by that is, I feel the ground with my bare feet and stop and breathe. Properly breathe. And I find that really helps set my day. Because, when I wake up, you get the talk, you get the internal talk. And normally these days it's more better than it was, lots of positive, the day sets up really well. But sometimes you get the negative narrative. By stopping and breathing straight away, you can manage that and catch that and talk to yourself. And I talk to myself and choose the day that I walk into the bathroom and I look at myself in the mirror and I talk to myself in the mirror and give myself some positive affirmation. So I think it's about that's starting the day in the right way and grounding yourself. I always try to do at least one act of kindness every single day. That can be in the form of phoning someone up out of the blue or doing it publicly on LinkedIn. But it's about taking action as well. So you can listen to podcasts, you can absorb content, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's about actually taking small steps each day as well. And there's loads of other stuff as well. Things like these days with work and life, it's very difficult. So each night I always write down 3 to 5 things I want to achieve in business. And if anything more than that's a bonus, but those 3 to 5 things, but also personal as well. So my 3 habits this week are drinking 4 pints of water, have 5 portions of vegetables or fruit, and 6 pieces of exercises, which are 4, 5, 6, nice and easy. Yeah. If I do both of those things every day, everything else is a bonus.
It's amazing how simple those things are, really. It's about breathing, it's about eating properly, getting enough sleep. And yet I know from experiences in my own family that when you're going through that difficult time, that difficult journey, those things actually become quite difficult to do, don't they?
Yeah, I think on that point, actually, I saw some piece of content by Mel Robbins. It was actually.
She's the one you have to high five yourself in the mirror every day. Yeah.
When you're going on swimmingly and something happens to you, or you have to do something like, I didn't want to go for a run today, but instead of saying I have to go for a run, I said to myself, I get to go for a run. So I get to go and see the trees and the fresh air, rather than I have to put on. It's all that kind of stuff. Like what Simi said, what you tell yourself and how you frame it, it's important.
Simi, anything to add to what we can do if we're going through a bit of a bad day, what we can do to sort of set our mindset up to be a little bit more positive? What can we do?
I love those tips. I think in addition to that, I think it's really what I do is wake up in the morning and I set my intention for the day. So we all have a long list to do, things that we need to do. And quite often, a lot of that list doesn't necessarily motivate us. But what can motivate us is having the intention for how we want to show up for the day. So I really advocate being super clear on what your values are, becoming really clear on what your values are in terms of what you stand for, what you how you want to show up. And remind yourself of those each day, each morning, because regardless of what happens in that day, whether you get to achieve all those goals, life throws so much at us during the day, expected and unexpected. But what is in our control is how we decide to show up. So I think, just letting yourself take that little bit of control, because we do have that in terms of how we show up and the actions that we decide to take. So I would definitely suggest that.
Okay. And as recruitment leaders, obviously, we're not in their homes as much as, we're not in offices with our teams as much as we would be normally, but they'll be having a Zoom conversation along the lines of what we're having now. How do you, as a recruitment leader, how can we support our teams to make sure that they do have good mental health at the moment? Because I know, I know my team are watching now, but, with homeschooling, working, the market picking up, we are about as stretched as we could possibly be. And it's really tough. So how can I help my team? How can other leaders help their teams, Chris?
I think it starts with the leadership team showing up as our true selves. So not asking someone to do something we're not prepared to do ourselves. But I mean, I think depends on the size of the organisation as well. I think why not have some mental health ambassadors or champions or whatever you want to call them inside your work that champion mental health. You know, have non-work Zooms where people can just hang and chat. You know, the leader needs to maybe encourage himself or herself to actually talk about their own troubles a little bit as well. You know, there's different things you can do. You can have like in-house counsellors, psychologists, therapists, but I think defining a wellbeing strategy is really, really important, because it's not just to manage mental health. It drives the performance as well. And once leaders correlate that, you know, they tend to jump on. But I think it is about purpose as well. I think it's about making sure, you know, what you want out of your business as well. If you're purely profit focused, your mental health is going to suffer. So I think it's a holistic approach, but with actual tangible resources as well.
Okay, Simi?
I'd agree with all of that, and I'd also add to that, it's about encouraging the dialogue. So, you know, at the start of meetings, you know, open up the question of, so come on guys, how are you all feeling? What's going on? And, you know, just that human connection and time at the beginning of meetings before jumping straight into business and, you know, the strategy and the numbers and whatever needs to be discussed. I think it's so important to allow that time and space. People may not open up, and it's fine, but you're creating an opportunity, you're creating a space. And, you know, they may then, you know, get in contact with you offline. But I think setting that tone is so important.
Okay, thank you. Some really useful tips there. I think it's also just as you said, just making sure you give it the time. And I think I know when we're on our Zoom calls, we're straight into it. And yeah, I think the points you've made are really, really important. Okay, so this kind of takes us nicely on to this piece about positive mindset. I've been very fortunate to always see the world through rose-coloured glasses. Even if, you know, stuff is happening around me, I'm generally a very resilient, positive person, and I have a half full approach to life. And as a consequence, I'm someone who bounces back quite quickly in the face of adversity. And I think that's often the case with top performers. And as they say, you know, what you think, you become. And I think that's just so true. And I love a good definition. So when I was talking about personal branding last week, I tried to come up with my own definition of what a positive mindset looks like. So I'm just going to read my definition for this week, which is a frame of mind, which is the sum of beliefs, opinions and thoughts that you form about the world and yourself. And these beliefs and thoughts are often shaped through our upbringing and experiences. And I'm a massive believer in that sort of nature v nurture piece. I remember years ago when I was going for an interview for a telephone salesperson at the independent newspaper. There were 1,000 of us applying for the job for 10 roles. And the 10 people that they took, when you actually talked back about your life, all they wanted was people who had suffered in some way in their childhood, either been bullied or had a difficult family background. They wanted incredibly resilient people to launch this telesales division when the Independent first started years and years ago. So yeah, I had that background, so that sort of fitted well with me. But in your view, Simi, if I start with you, how important is it, do you think, to have a positive mindset in recruitment? And do you really believe that having a positive mindset impacts performance?
I love your definition, Ruella. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I think that's a great question. I think positive mindset and having the right mindset is critical to success in anything that you're doing. You know, mindset is more than half of the battle. And if we can get that right, you know, other things don't seem as hard because we've got the mindset to be able to approach things. Things are not always going to go to plan. We are going to tackle and come across obstacles and challenges. But if you have the right mindset, the positive mindset, but not just a positive mindset, a realistic mindset as well, that this is a challenge. Okay, let's acknowledge it. It's, you know, it's pretty crazy at the moment. Life is a bit difficult at the moment, or quite difficult at the moment, but this is what we're going to do to move forward. And I think, you know, it's not just about being positive. It's about being completely realistic and accepting that to a certain extent, that these are my circumstances. This is the situation I'm in. But then using all the tools and strategies to push forward and to move forward. And I think that's the resilience key. And we call it in psychology, we call it learning agility, to be able to really learn quickly, like what is working well here, what's not working, and how can I now pivot or change and quickly adapt to the situation. So I think learning agility is a really kind of sought after skill, and it's something that we can all develop, especially in the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
I'm going to do some more research into that. I love that, learning agility. Chris, you've been a recruitment leader. You've been in this situation. Can you just sort of give me your thoughts on that as well?
I think it's really important. I think even down the phone or down a Zoom, you know, humans can feel it emanates. They can feel your vibe. But I mean, as a headline level, I mean, I had a horrible childhood, but in the last 6 years, I actually wrote it down. I lost my business in 2014. I lost contact with my son in 2015. Then lost my life in 2016. Lost my wife in 2017. I lost my mansion or my house in 2018. Like, fuck, you know. Sorry to swear. You know.
Did you have anything else left to lose?
Well, no, maybe. But in 2019, you can either use that as a victim, put yourself in a victim state, or use it and reframe it into a different thing. And I think I've managed to achieve that. I've used that adversity to my benefit and others' benefits by serving others and saying, actually, this has happened for me, not to me. So yeah, I think you know, the age-old thing is, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And you know, you have to be your own biggest supporter. But also, it's being ruthless, setting boundaries, and being really in tune with what's important to you. So I've done things like doing a friends audit and a time audit of what I do. But one thing I picked up.
What was your friends audit, Chris?
Well, I just did a summary of. It sounds a bit strange, of my friends and the people in my life, who was adding value to me and who wasn't. You know, who was causing me pain and who wasn't. And on the flip side, what I was doing for them. So there was a self-reflection piece around, you know, am I doing enough for them as well? But also doing an autopsy of what's good and what's been good and what I've done well in my life. Because all too often, personally, you know, you can go into the zone of, oh, that went wrong because of this, and you can do an autopsy of the negative. Why don't you do an autopsy of some of the stuff you've done well and tune into that as well? So all that kind of stuff.
I think that's all really.
Oh, sorry, Simi.
I was just going to add, Rubella, that I think that's really relevant, because the more that we can reflect, we can self-reflect, we get to deepen our understanding of how we've coped with such situations and the personal qualities, characteristics, good and bad, that we've brought to those situations. And I think the more awareness that we can have about ourselves, when we find ourselves in similar situations, we can very early on recognize some of those triggers. And we can pull upon our experience from the past. We can pull upon the toolkits that we're building up, and quite quickly we can get ourselves out of there a lot quicker. So again, that's where the learning agility comes into play. And also, I think it's so important to recognize, you know, when we're in a fixed mindset, when we're in a mindset of, oh, you know, I just can't do this, nothing's going to work, to when we recognize we're in a growth mindset where we see possibilities. And we push on, even though it is really hard, we take the actions. And I think each time we take that action, even if it's a small action, but it's taking us towards our goal, in our mind is actually becoming really kind of receptive that we're taking actions towards our goals. And it then allows us to start seeing what is possible. And that is when things become a bit easier for us. So we can help ourselves in that way.
It's difficult. I mean, I've been in a growth mindset for the past 9 months, but I remember on the 16th of March crying my eyes out with what was happening with COVID, the impact it was having on me, my family, my team, my business. If you feel your whole world is falling apart, I think it's very difficult to get yourself out of that sort of negative mindset. And and I think it does affect top billers, particularly, if you think of everyone who maybe in 2019 was absolutely flying, 2020 hits, you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, and then to pull yourself back up from that, it's tricky. I think it is quite tricky. How can you change from having a mindset that is perhaps erring on the negative side? How can you change it to be more positive? I don't think it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot of that, but I think it sometimes it is baby steps. So it can be as macro or micro. What's the term? As like if you're doing a Zoom, put your work attire on. It can be that kind of small macro thing. I mean, I'm speaking to a few people that are in quite a lot of pain around their various mental health issues, and it's almost like, today I've gone for a walk, I've made my own meal, and I've done one other thing, and that's for me, for that individual, that's a bloody victory, because the previous 9 days he's lying in bed. So it doesn't have to be this monumental massive thing. It can be baby steps forward, I think.
Yeah, lovely.
I think it's also looking at your resources. What have you got around you that can help you? Quite often we forget to kind of look up and look around, because we become so consumed in what we're going through. So I think that's really important to tap into your resources. And then secondly, I think it's really important to allow yourself to come up with your expectations, because your expectations of yourself, of what you had in 2019, is not going to be realistic to hold those kind of expectations for the situation we're all in now. So it's really about being realistic with yourself and setting yourself up for success, whether those may be just smaller wins. Whatever they are, just recognizing and acknowledging even the small steps that you take, because they accumulatively will make the bigger difference.
I think as well, just on that point, sorry to interrupt, the whole comparison piece as well. I think it's all too easy to fall into the trap of, that person's faster, better, stronger, whatever the word is, than me. And again, it's easier said than done, but I try to just compare myself with myself. So am I better than yesterday? And I might not be. And what you said earlier as well, sometimes you're going to have bad days, and sometimes you're not going to understand. And actually, that's okay as well. I mean, you can't consistently pull it out the bag, So I guess what I'm trying to say is, be kind to yourself as well.
Chris, do you believe, though, that the people who perform better, you've just said not to compare, so I'm going to try not to compare, but would you say that the top performers in most businesses are those that usually have that more positive mindset?
Absolutely. I mean, performance is predominantly in the mind. 80-90% of research proves that. You can have all the skills, experience, all the tools around you, that you can work for a great company with all the operations, all the branding, everything there. But if that person's mindset is wrong, is not doing all the things outside of work, it doesn't matter. So if you ask me what I look for in people, if they've got that mindset, behaviors, attitudes, vision, value stuff over, billing £1 million a year, it doesn't matter. It is that mindset, and it does start with that. And sometimes the best way to do that is to take it out of yourself. So instead of being in your own mind, doing the act of kindness, or picking up the phone and just saying, look, I feel shit today, and speaking to as many people as you can, just try and get yourself out of your own mind.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the two things that really resonated with me, if I can remember them both, the first was who you surround yourself with is normally how you, I think that has a big impact on you. So Simi and I are both part of a network that was set up by Amelia Sordell, and I think we would both agree wholeheartedly that being part of that women's group, that tribe, has really made a massive difference for us both over the last 9 months. And the other part, unfortunately, it's just got out of my head. But I thank you both for today. I really, really appreciate your time. I think what comes across loud and clear is that, you need to choose your mindset wisely. There are things that we can do for ourselves to help us push through those tough times. And actually, those steps are quite simple overall. And I hope that our audience watching today has taken away some tips about for their own mental health, for their mindset. I hope if recruitment leaders are watching us, they've also done the same. I think it is really hard right now. I think I'm finding this lockdown, even with the positive mindset, the growth mindset, everything that I've done for the business, I still think it's pretty tough out there at the moment. So if anyone does want to reach out to Simi or Chris, as I said, they're both offering a free one-to-one. Whether you're a recruitment leader, you're a consultant, or you're not even in recruitment, but you're watching this show, do send me a private message, or you can put something in the chat box there. I've remembered now it's called the chat box, not the comments box. Please connect with Chris and Simi. They are doing this day in, day out, and really helping businesses be far more successful as a consequence. Next week, my guest will be Sally Spicer, and we're going to be talking about how perhaps the last year has halted your growth in terms of your career. And we're going to be looking at some things that you can do or things that you can implement to help you, develop your purpose in terms of your role and career development. So please watch us next week for that show. Some more details will be coming out in the next few days. There will be a replay if you missed a show this week. All the other replays are there as well. But thank you so much. This is such an important topic. I just want to thank Darren, Leisha, Francesca. I think I've seen Liz watching, all my team, and anyone else who's watching us today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments. And we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
you.